I've been hearing a lot about how the Switch does not have a browser, and I get that's going to affect some people, and I'm not going to act like, it's just fine because I know there are people who will be affected by it. How many people? Probably not a lot, to be completely honest with you. Kotaku just did a poll on this and showed that something like 71% of people just don't use their web browser on their game console, which I can relate to because I never really used it. I think I used the PS3's web browser once way back when. I mean, this is like the first year it was out, and it was like or second year, it was like an Opera browser or something. Not very good. So I can understand that some people may need it, some people don't care. But let me at least give you an idea as to why Nintendo is not including a browser, and you can kind of maybe understand what their point of view is for this whole thing. So first off, let me explain to you guys that the web browser that Nintendo has been putting out, specifically the ones on the 3DS and the Wii U, have been able to be heavily exploited at this point. And for the Wii U specifically, it has really opened the door to run unsigned code on the Wii U. So you can run code that is not supposed to be run for homebrew apps and even games without buying them. You can download games and then just load them on the system. So that should be an immediate red flag. Obviously, for Nintendo, they're not dumb. They keep an eye on this stuff. Even if you don't think they're watching, they're watching. They're out there online looking at what's going on in the hacking community. I can tell you that now. And they realize that the web browser has been affecting their system. Now, I'm not saying that hacking is causing bad sales or anything, but if you're a third-party system, if you're a third-party developer, okay, and you realize that people can download your game for free, it's going to be less interesting to put that on there without some kind of DRM. That's why you see games like Resident Evil 7 come out and they have DRM attached to them. It's worth the money to put that on there and prevent people from downloading a game for free, even if it's just for the first week, because that's when most of the sales come. And trust me, piracy is a big deal, especially for a lot of companies. I mean, they cite piracy all the time. It is tough for companies who want to put a lot of money into developing a game, but they're scared that people will just pirate the thing. Now, there are a lot of places and people that won't pirate. I'm not going to say everybody does it or something, definitely not. However, it can make companies hesitant to move stuff over, especially if the Switch has a web browser, which has been known to give issue to Nintendo systems, and they're exploitable. So for example, with the Wii U, you may not know this, but you can pretty much set up the system, and then you visit a website that then gives you the ability to run unsigned code. That is part of the process to modify the Wii U, is to go to a website that then helps you modify your system. And that's the thing. Web browsers can give you access to something that a file explorer would give you access to, just because it's a web browser. I mean, the PS3, for example. Now, the PS3 was exploitable. It's called jailbreaking it. And what happens is, after you jailbreak it, you load your custom firmware, and then people like to do things like download games and then download hacks for that game. Well, the way you actually load the game up is through a web browser. It will load a web browser, and that gives it root access to files. And these programs are well known. I don't really need to name any of them, but if you have done any work with PS3s for hacking in the past at all, or even now, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It will load the game up. You can also load up mod tools and everything and do all kinds of crazy stuff to these games. So if you're Nintendo, you know that your browsers are able to be exploited, specifically in the past with the 3DS and the Wii U. I'm not saying if they put a web browser on the Switch, it will be modded and hacked in the first week, first month, probably even first year, but that inevitability is coming. Now, maybe they will be comfortable enough to release a web browser down the road, but whatever they've been doing to design their web browsers has not been very good. The security has not been there, I'll say that. It's not like web browsers, for example, on the PS4 and the Xbox One, where it doesn't provide the same access, which is interesting. I'm not really sure what it is about Nintendo's web browser that does this. It seems to be very easy to modify the system. Maybe somebody who's watching knows a lot about hacking. Maybe they've even designed some of these hacks. And if you want to anonymously leave in the comments how this happens with Nintendo systems more so than the others right now, that would be awesome. So here's Nintendo looking at their system, realizing that the internet browser, at least in its current state, would not be a good idea to load onto the system because they're doing everything in their power, everything they can to bring third parties in. You need to make sure your system is secure, because if all of a sudden the system is hacked, it's able to be exploited easily just by using the web browser, for example, and loading some files on like an SD card. all of a sudden, third parties are looking at the system and they're going, well, people can just download our game and put it on there and just play it. Well, why would we, one, port a game, or two, just create a unique game for the system? So I think Nintendo is being smart here. We don't need a web browser. I mean, like I said before, some people are going to be frustrated that it's not there. I think they'll get over it. And based on the numbers that Kotaku put up with their survey, which is a small survey, but it was a good bit of people who voted. It was something like 30,000 people voted on that one poll, and more than 70% said they don't even use their browser. It's not worth it on Nintendo's side to please the other 30%, or in this case, probably less, because the handheld systems were the smallest on that entire chart. To please the small percent that wants the web browser, that would then possibly open the system up, again, in its current state with those web browsers, to being hacked and exploited. For the damage it could do for third-party support, it's just not worth it on their side. Also, it costs money to put web browsers on systems. They don't just snap their finger and it just appears on their system in the OS. They have to pay people to do this. So in that sense, guys, if you were the head of Nintendo, you're looking down, you realize your web browser could cause issue with security in the future, and you know you need to bring in money, you know you need to bring in third-party support, would you pay somebody, a team of people, for example, would you pay them to put a web browser in your operating system that could then go out on store shelves, be exploited, and then possibly turn third-party support off? If you were the head of Nintendo, would you approve that? And that's where I'll leave it today, guys. Let me know down in the comments, would you approve a web browser if you knew the possibility of a security risk was there? Would you please the small percent for that? I don't think I would. I think Nintendo is doing a smart thing here because they are all full speed ahead to try to get third-party developers in. They've already made it super easy to port games. They've made it very easy to develop for. Why ruin that with a potential security flaw? But that'll do it for now, guys. Let me know in the comments. I will see you next time.